All right, what's up, everybody? So today I was actually headed down to the basement to record my Jeff Nippard bicep tier list reaction video. And right before I went down, I saw a video of Jeff Nippard getting shoved in the gym. A guy basically grabbed his neck and shoved him backwards by a guy named Big Mike Van Wyck. I don't think Big is his actual first name, but that's apparently what people call him. So I know a little bit about this guy, but not a whole ton. And I figured I should just react to his bicep training advice instead of Jeff Nippard's for this specific time. The one thing I've seen from this guy is, I believe it was from Natural Hypertrophy a couple years ago, a video about him basically saying that natural bodybuilders are afraid to take gear, and that's why they're going to stay small and be small when they die or whatever. Kind of a strange argument, but either way, I'll kind of let just Natural Hypertrophy video tackle that one. In this video, I want to react to his bicep training advice. I really have no idea what I'm getting into. The two things I kind of want to say before getting into the video. The first one is Barbell Apparel is having their free hoodie sale. Anytime you spend more than 99 bucks on their website, you get a free hoodie. They're 88 bucks each, so pretty good value if you ask me. If you want to see my collection or the Basement Bodybuilding Club t-shirt, you can check the link in my description. It has all the stuff I wear from them that I've ever ordered and my custom t-shirt as well if you want to support the channel. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is I'm going to try not to go too hard on Mike. Obviously, he's a very sensitive boy and his feelings get hurt pretty easily over very small things. So Mike, if you're watching this, I'm going to try and keep it as objective as possible. I don't want to attack you as a person or anything. I might accidentally every here and there, depending on how the video goes, but I'm going to try and keep it objective and talk about the actual training advice. So with that being said, since you're a very big guy, let's see if your advice is actually worthwhile or if it was just the steroids that happened to get you big, which is the case a lot of the time. So let me see. Let's put myself up on the screen next to this and get this playing.
There's a lot of videos going around on Instagram right now. You just see these trends of like fucking dorky ass dudes who have no muscle.
Strong start.
So let your imagination run wild as to who that might be.
Okay. Didn't know he was going to say that, but obviously he's going to be talking about Jeff Nippard in this one. Seems like this guy really dislikes Jeff Nippard, not like for what he says, but just who he is. My guess is he doesn't have the understanding of like how to actually debate Jeff Nippard on things he disagrees with because he doesn't understand training, so he just resorts to ad hominem attacks. But either way, let me not judge him too soon. Like I said, I didn't want to hurt his little feelings.
Numerous people, not just one. Anyway, so they come up with these, like, they see older exercises or exercises that are like foundational exercises, like bench press, whatever it could be, right? So the thing that's the hot topic of lately is this idea that incline dumbbell curls are like the best dumbbell curls to do.
So they hate on foundational exercises that are like time tested and old school. And he's talking about the incline dumbbell curl. That lift's been around forever. Like, he clearly doesn't know his bodybuilding history. I'm not an expert in it, but clearly he knows less than me.
They elicit more stretch on your bicep.
They do, yeah. So your elbow goes behind your torso. That stretches out your bicep. So you'll get a stretch on an incline dumbbell curl. Like I've talked about before, peak tension isn't at the bottom, but let's see what he has to say so I don't just talk about everything before he does.
Guys are looking at me like I'm nuts, but anyway. So guys sit back here and they put their chest up and they let their arm hang and they squeeze up and flex out, right? For a bigger guy, as you can see, I look super uncomfortable. I do not look comfortable.
That's a you problem. It probably doesn't have anything to do with you being big either. It's just that you don't want to get to that position to make the lift seem dumb.
Because I'm not. So if just because my chest is up and I do this with my shoulders and pull them back and I squeeze out of here, yes, I've lengthened my arm. Yes, I've stretched my pec and I'm pulling down on the shoulder and the tension on my hand of the dumbbell.
All right, that's a word salad. He's saying a lot without saying much. A little bit of a politician.
It's greater, so it's pulling down on my arm. So when I go to curl, I'm able to curl up and out like this, which is like what these people are saying. And there's nothing wrong with the exercise. You can do it, but it's far from the best, the thing that you could do.
I'd be curious to see if he explains why. I have a feeling he's not going to be able to.
So in the sense that, like, if I'm hanging here and I'm going to curl and I'm doing this motion of curling outward, because that's the most comfortable way for my arm to bend. As you can see, I can't be here. I'm not narrow enough to do that. So I naturally flare here and
nobody is. Everybody's your shoulder to hip width is going to be the same regardless of how jacked you are. That's a skeleton thing. So we're all kind of working with the same leverages here and the same skeleton.
Curl up on this bicep like this, right?
Okay, so I just want to hear him say what is wrong with going out at the side a little bit.
My arm is impinged in the sense that I can only now move my hand up. I can't get any rock of any kind, because if I rock, I throw the dumbbell forward and I almost swing and like just swing the arm up. I'm not isolating my bicep, right?
That doesn't make any sense. What he just said. So basically, it sounds like he wants to just let the elbows track forwards a little, which is fine. I actually advocate for a little bit of that. And I think it's useful to just make the lift a little bit more length and biased. As you raise the elbow, yes, you decrease the stretch, but you make the actual resistance profile of the lift a little more length and biased. Anyone that's super strong on incline dumbbell curls and has massive biceps uses a little bit of forward elbow travel to kind of make that happen, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. What he's saying here is if you track your elbows like super far forward to do a front raise, then the dumbbells will like hit your head. But that's a complete straw man, because you don't need to use that much forward elbow travel. So I'm not exactly sure what he means by that.
So the whole thing is that we need to get out of this method of thinking. Since we feel a stretch on something, or since technically this would stretch my bicep tendon the most because my arm is being pulled down and my shoulder's back, that it's optimal.
I agree with him on that. So just because you feel a stretch does not necessarily mean that lift is great, because sometimes you can get a stretch, but there's not a whole ton of tension in that stretch. You can't rely entirely on feelings. Eventually, you do have to learn proper lift mechanics so you can actually see how much tension is in that stretch position. But overall, as a principle, just because you have a sensation or feel a stretch happening doesn't mean it's optimal. It doesn't mean the stretch is going to be maximized in that specific lift, because the resistance profile might not complement that.
Because as you can see, like you said, like if I'm curling here and going out like this way, my immediate reaction to getting height here, other than right here, is to lift or roll my shoulder back. And now there's no tension on my.
That's fine. You're just, that's like how kind of a normal incline dumbbell curl looks. He's using a little bit more forward elbow travel, but that's his instinct. That's not a problem with the lift. That's a problem with him. Lifting is a game of overriding your instincts, specifically for training for hypertrophy. You want to go through those challenging parts of the lift, because that's what's going to be most difficult on the muscle itself. If you just find ways to cheat around it, you don't have very good control over your actual instincts. You have to kind of override that to become a good bodybuilder.
My dumbbell. So now I have to get back down to here and feel it again, and I'm getting tension at the bottom. So
you won't be getting much tension at the bottom. I'm not sure what he means by that.
Might be like 3 to 4 inches of range where I'm actually feeling my bicep, but
that's how any free weight curl is going to be. The only time that's not the case is with like a selectorized machine with a consistent flat resistance profile because of a perfectly round cam. Anytime you're doing a free weight curl with a dumbbell, barbell, easy bar, even a cable, you're not maximizing the entire range of motion, because it's a single joint movement.
Since I feel this overwhelming stretch, I'm like, oh, something's happening. It's great for guys who are small. Let's have that caveat in there. If you're small, go for it.
Let's see if he explains why.
You can but hopefully one day you're going to grow to being that small, and you're not just.
I think it just cut him off when he tried to explain why. He like edited it out because he had no idea what to say. Let me rewind that real quick. Instant replay.
Things happening. It's great for guys who are small. Let's have that caveat in there. If you're small, go for it. You can but hopefully one day.
He goes to explain why, and it just cuts off because he didn't know. He had no he had no like response to that. He was like, "Oh, it's good if you're small," and then can't explain why. That's great advice to be putting on the internet.
You're going to grow to being that small, and you're not just to learn how to do biceps when you have a back and lats and all this shit. So if you want to do seated bicep curls, this is not recommended by me. I don't do seated bicep curls. I'd rather stand to do most of my bicep stuff. But if you want to do seated and you're a bigger guy, or you have any type of musculature to your body, you don't need to lay back to create that tension. All I need to do is posture up, or even posture down. If I want to stay postured up, I lean to one side and I curl up one side. So if I lean over here and I set my weight down, lengthening my arm, I drive up through here. So
I think he means just, when he says lengthening his arm, I think he means just dropping his arm down instead of like actually lengthening the bicep.
I'm just scooping up here, and as you can see, there's a lot more mobility and a lot more sway in my body, so I can get more contraction from the bottom all the way up through the top of the range, right?
That's not how that works. Yeah, that's not how that works. The resistance profile on these two lists is going to be exactly the same. So whether you're cheating or not cheating, the resistance profile is going to be the same. Like cheating, you can, if you track your elbows forwards, you can get more tension at, like you can shift the tension so it's more at the bottom of the range of motion. But other than that, yeah, it's going to be the same lift. Of course, just the positioning is different. So the bicep is going to be at slightly different lengths due to the shoulder changing position.
As opposed to me being back here going, like, especially if the weight gets too heavy back there, you're fucked. You're not fucking curling shit. You're literally.
If the weight gets too heavy, like that's, you just went too heavy. You just have to go a little bit lighter.
You just fucking look like you're throwing bales of hay over your fucking.
Yeah, because you're at failure. He's like nitpicking. You can tell he hates incline dumbbell curls. This is my opinion. He hates incline dumbbell curls because somebody said it was like the best lift, or someone that likes science said it's a great lift or something. And he hates those types of people, obviously. And he has no idea how to actually like debunk what they're talking about. And a lot of it can be debunked. I'm not disagreeing with him in regards to that. He just has no idea what he's talking about. Like he's nitpicking things that don't even make sense, or things that don't even matter. And it's a very strange concept, what he's doing here. But either way, I guess if you don't like incline dumbbell curls and you want to like use more cheat or something past failure, you could do regular like alternating dumbbell curls with an upright back. That's fine. It's just a super like weird angle to view your lifts from, I think.
The shoulder, right? So doing a double bicep curl with individual, obviously it's individual biceps. To keep this straight line feeling, I need to be able to swing so that if I didn't move or I sit back here, immediately my arm's gonna want to go out like that, like on the laying back. So I need to keep myself kind of forward and my chin pressed back.
It's also fine if your arms turn out a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that.
So that I can push back and rock into the pressure that's on my back and my head. So I'm keeping pressure here, locking into my back so I can rock off so that my back becomes stable and I can swing up through my elbow and swing up through and curl, right? So if I don't create stability with my curl, I don't create any connection to my biceps. So I have to lock down my back to be able to squeeze up. That's why all you guys have seen watching this video, like you put the guys put the finger on their neck and the finger on their body and do the arm roll curl, where it's holding their arms here and they curl, literally forcing their elbows to be here. That's because that's how you're supposed to curl. Because you see someone doing it and explaining it, and they may be explaining it in a very technical way, or they may be like this new trend of like all the fitness influencers who really don't know what they're doing. They have this thing where it's like, I'm training bicep, and you'll see like when they're training their bicep, all of a sudden this like, it'll light up red. And they're like, this is where I'm training. They have to show you, because you can't fucking see that it's working. They have to show you what's happening.
Yep. Okay. Well, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but I agree with him that sometimes the science guys can take it a little bit too far, but like a lot of the time the science guys, they know what they're talking about as far as like biomechanics and stuff go. Like that's the one thing you can't really knock them on. It's usually their programming, or sometimes it's the resistance profiles that they don't quite understand. But as far as like anatomy and biomechanics, they understand it pretty well. And when you don't understand that and you try and debunk them on it, it's just going to come out like a bunch of gibberish, which is what this video is. I'm about a third of the way through it right now. So he's talking about a lot of things that just frankly don't matter. Like if your wrists are a little bit in or a little bit out. He's talking about like creating stability through your back for a curl and like trying to use momentum to get your biceps going. It's like, I'm all for using a little bit of cheat, but that it just doesn't make something like better or worse. It's more so just different. And I think it seems like he's searching for problems that aren't exactly there.
So like, we know you can't see what's happening, but we're going to show you by this little dot. It's like,
well, okay. So when people like highlight a certain muscle, a certain color, it's for clicks. Like most people that are watching this type of content don't understand anatomy, and that's fine, because these are like newer lifters. They're people that just don't quite understand how the body is built or how biomechanics work and all this stuff. So they have to like do those little things. And if they indicate like, oh, this muscle is going to be like, I'm going to highlight it red on the video, or use like a muscle marker or something, that works to get clicks. if you don't understand how a muscle works, like sometimes that's pretty helpful. Like if you take someone that has no idea how your pecs work and they've been like chubby their whole life and they can't see their own pecs or striations, like as gimmicky as it is, like Athlean using those muscle markers is going to teach someone how that works. So it might seem very simple to someone like us, but at the same time, that type of content's for beginners, and those little indicators and visual cues can help people that are newer to lifting understand how a muscle is or how a muscle works and where it inserts, basically.
When they put the fucking glowing thing on the puck in hockey because idiots couldn't follow the puck, it's like, you know what's happening, right? I know how to curl. I know when I feel my bicep and when I don't.
That's pretty funny. I'll give them that.
So just get out of thinking that these influencers or these guys who have like very little experience or very little in terms of the way of physique and musculature are telling you how to do optimal exercises. Like, it's absolute nonsense, right?
Okay, so he's hinted very strongly that he's mainly critiquing Jeff Nippert in this video. The one thing I would say is him saying that Jeff Nippert is small and has no muscle is completely a him problem. He's projecting his own body dysmorphia. I'm sure most people could kind of see that onto Jeff Nippert. Jeff Nippert is a natural pro bodybuilder. He's very jacked. People say, oh, he's short. He's a science guy, but that doesn't detract from the fact that he's jacked. It's pretty good rhyme, not going to lie. But Jeff Nippert's big, like he is. And if you don't think Jeff Nippert's big, I would probably point the finger inwards and look at, is your lens of viewing Jeff Nippert distorted? It probably is.
An individual that I have a known history with of having a problem with the way he teaches. I don't have a problem with him personally. Me and him have spoken directly and understand each other, but it's
that didn't age well.
It's like the science guys are these guys that preach this optimal biomechanics and they're like doing this and they're explaining all this stuff. If you guys really take a deep dive and look at the guys that are preaching that and they're really like, that's what they're like hanging their hat on, none of them have like a physique worth talking about.
A lot of them do. And that's the problem with his perspective. He's comparing natural lifters to enhanced guys. So at surface level, if you don't really think about that a whole ton, you just say, oh, well, yeah, all the pro bodybuilders, Mike Van Wyck, they're all doing this stuff. If you were to take away the X factor, so the PDs, I don't think he would have a better physique than Jeff Nippert. There's no way the way that he trains and understands exercising and just biomechanics and lifting, there's no way that would lead to a better physique than someone like Jeff. Like Jeff trains in a very good way, especially when he was competing. I mean, I've nitpicked like the power building stuff and whatnot, but when he was competing in bodybuilding, he had pretty well-rounded training, brutally strong. At least that's just another correlation with being huge. And he was a natural pro bodybuilder. The only reason, I'm not saying the only reason Mike is big is from PDs, but if you took a natural that had the same level of understanding of lifting as he does, that person probably would be a natural pro bodybuilder, let alone a competitive one like Jeff was. So it's a bit of a straw man, and it's kind of like he's purposely leaving a very, very, very big elephant in a very small room out of the equation, which is very much so disingenuous.
They don't look good. They may look good for like what they are. Do you know what I mean? But they're not like world class level. Neither am I. But
they might look good for what they are. I should get that on a shirt.
The thing is, I give a shit about training and I give a shit about fucking teaching people how to do things well because it's like what I do for a living.
He clearly doesn't, though. He like any furthering of his education, he doesn't care about. To me, he seems like someone that's very complacent in what he understands. He doesn't care to actually learn more. He just wants to kind of settle where he's at and not continue to kind of push things further. Like someone like Jeff Nippert, much smarter than him as far as like training stuff goes. I mean, obviously it's a small sample, so I don't know a whole ton about this guy, but he's struggling to explain like a seated dumbbell curl versus an incline dumbbell curl.
So if I did stupid exercises with people all day, they would stop training with me. And just understand, if you guys see, guys and girls especially, if you see a girl or a guy giving you an exercise to do and claiming that it's the best, feel free to like debunk that and try that before you like just be like, oh, I do this because so-and-so said, and like my arms are going to grow now. It's like, they're not, dude.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm all for healthy skepticism. I mean, look at me. I'm like the biggest skeptic you'll see. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I challenge things and I'm a skeptic, and I have been for years now. It's kind of what my entire channel really is. But part of the things that I'm skeptical of are people like him that clearly don't understand much of what he's talking about.
There's really, really not. I think a lot of people should start looking back to older videos of maybe some bodybuilders in the past, or even some fitness girls in the past whose physiques you like, and like watch these older videos that aren't these fancy videos with like B-roll and cuts and fucking like glowing body parts and like slow motion like twist angles. Like, just watch people who have physiques you like, watch them train, see how.
That's a more nuanced argument. If I go into that, it's going to drag the video on a whole ton. It's a half truth, I think. If you find someone that has a physique you like and they're natural, they're probably onto something. If you see someone with a physique you like and they're on PEDs, that's a whole other factor that could completely skew everything. It's already been proven, at least with a decent amount of literature, that people that are on PEDs and not training are going to gain more muscle than people that are natural and actually training. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. If you find someone with a natural physique that you really like, then sure, you can probably learn a lot just from observing them, even if they're not an expert and they can't like explain it that well. A lot of the time they know what they're doing, they just can't really say it. But either way, if you're finding someone like Mike, for example, obviously he's in the video, so I'm going to be talking about him, where he has a decent physique. I mean, for someone that's on PEDs, it's less than impressive, I'd say, but he's still a muscular guy. Someone like him that isn't a top level compared to his basically peers, so other lifters on PEDs, then how do you know if his advice is good advice? Does he have his following because he has tattoos and films in black and white and like makes kind of like controversial-ish content, or is it because he can actually explain things really well and help other lifters understand lifting and become better lifters?
How they move and see how effortless it is, and see how much movement is in it, or how much there isn't any movement, but where they're locking down and doing things like that, because that's the shit that matters. There's like glowing diagrams and fucking anatomy textbooks and shit like that. It's all well and good, but it doesn't apply in the real world, right?
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. I mean, obviously people can like abuse that and take it too far, just not understand it. But if you're trying to say that anatomy or biomechanics doesn't apply to your training, that's an absurd claim to make. Of course, there are top guys that are like genetically gifted or happen to stumble upon the right things and they don't fully understand it. But if you're telling me the average person that has average genetics in an average environment with an average mindset wouldn't benefit from understanding how muscles function, I mean, come on. Like that's an absurd claim. And it's something he can say because it's tough to prove that wrong, since there's not like one giant piece of evidence to prove him wrong. It's like a bunch of individual little cases that you're not going to be able to present all as one to kind of debunk that argument. So he can get away with saying something like that. That's completely outrageous and incorrect. But either way, he wants to say it because he hates certain people and he doesn't know how to debunk them. So he just says things like that.
All kinds of shit. Like, you guys could take your driving test, and you all know we passed our driving test. It was a load of shit when we took it. So now you drive a car, you do all kinds of weird shit. And like none of the stuff they taught you would work. Like, you'd be driving, people would be honking at you all day, right? If I understand how to do
how you apply it is obviously up to you.
Bicep curl standing, that doesn't mean, oh, seated must be better. Because now I'm taking my body out of it. I'm taking like the balance that I have to stabilize standing. I can sit and just swing my arm. It's like I can do the same thing when I'm standing here and curling. I don't have to put any more effort into the curl. I don't have to be here. And I wouldn't stand like this and go like this and curl like this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would have no reason to do that. Unless for some reason you get a great pump that way, knock yourself out. But most people are just going to be locked.
The pump doesn't matter, just quickly. Yeah, pump doesn't matter.
Down, like I said, I'm creating pressure on the back of my tricep and pushing into my lat. So I'm creating pressure here and down. So the back of my arm is locked onto my back and I'm swinging up through the stability of that. I'm not trying to rock my arm up and swing my hand. Fucking sweating like a bitch. I shouldn't have done cardio before I came.
He continues to nitpick these cues that just don't really matter or apply. I mean, he wants to talk about like real world practical cues for curling. A curl is very straightforward. It's elbow flexion. If you want to use a little bit of cheat or you want to use a little bit of forward elbow travel, that's fine. But ultimately, what curling variations come down to are going to be elbow positioning, stability, wrist positioning. And other than that, it's just there's not a whole ton else that really matters. So he's like it seems to be like he's like kind of beating around a bush that he doesn't understand there's a bush there. It's very odd. All right, well, that was pretty much it for the bicep topic. Not a whole ton of takeaways, in my opinion. It was a lot of kind of like gibberish. There's a lot of stuff about little cues that really don't apply to curls that much. A lot of stuff that really just wasn't very cohesive, I would say, overall. So if you're someone that's debating between doing an incline curl and just like a regular standing or seated dumbbell curl with no back support, or at least like an upright back, I would just note that they are going to place your bicep in different positions. So obviously your elbow is going to be behind you on an incline curl. Your elbow is going to be by your side on a regular standing or seated dumbbell curl with a more upright back. And just take that into account for the sake of variation. Overall, it's not going to be a massive difference between the two. You can use a little bit more momentum on a standing curl or a seated curl without back support, because the back support and you sitting down isn't going to limit you. So if you prefer to use momentum for whatever reason, or if you prefer to use like cheat reps via momentum after a straight set to whatever desired proximity to failure you have, that's fine. But when it comes to something like an incline curl, just because someone like Mike feels like uncomfortable down in that position, or they can't like cheat, or he wants to like curl up so high because of his instincts, that doesn't completely invalidate a single exercise. I would actually go as far as to say it more so just invalidates his opinion, because those things don't actually like matter. And that might sound a little bit extreme, but when you take your advice on, or when you take someone's advice on if a lift is good or not good, they should be able to explain it in a way that you could actually understand pretty well. So like when you hear me talk about a preacher curl, if you watch any of my own tier lists or my own tier list reactions from Jeff Nippard, both me and Jeff Nippard, while we have disagreements here and there, we both can explain things quite well. Aside from maybe some tiny little nitpicky things, and overall, you're gonna leave with a much better understanding of how those lifts work, because me and Jeff actually understand biomechanics and anatomy. And someone like Mike, he has no idea how it works. And I'm not saying that all of his advice is completely worthless or like counterproductive or anything. I'm sure he has good practical advice that there might be things that he knows but can't fully articulate or understand. And I don't have anything wrong with that. But when you make a video titled something like the real reason your biceps won't grow, and you make fun of an exercise that you don't even know is an old school classic because you think it's some gimmicky new thing, you're attacking the gimmick. You're not attacking it, and it's at the expense of the actual exercise that is quite solid. So with that said, that's pretty much all I got for today. If you have any other videos you want to see me react to or anything, let me know. And that's pretty much all I got. So I will see you guys in the next one.